Well, let the mental self-flagellation continue. So in the last video, we braved the horrors of one of the most notoriously hard games on PS1, but not content with pummeling our collective sanity with one game about a genetically engineered marsupial that could legitimately steal your ass and there wouldn't be a single thing you could do about it, the sadistic swines over at Naughty Dog decided we needed to be waterboarded again, and so just a year later they were back with a sequel, and I'm gonna play it, because apparently I have nothing better to do with my lonely little existence. And yeah, let's get into it. So Crash Bandicoot 2, Cortex Strikes Back was developed for PS1 by Naughty Dog and published by Sony Computer Entertainment and Universal Interactive Studios in 1997. It picks up right where the first one left off, with Dr. Neo Cortex, PhD, this time voiced by the legendary Clancy Brown, reflecting on his questionable life choices as he falls to his death after his fight with Crash. But no such luck, cause the fucker's still alive, and oh my god, he's found the crystals! Whatever that means, and yeah, that's the end of that. We then find our hero lounging around in the jungle with his sister, Coco. What happened to his lass? Uh-oh, looks like someone got kicked to the curb. I joke, but yeah, that's kind of what happened. See, they took her out and replaced her with Coco because she was considered to be a sexist and overly sexualized stereotype. No! Who will the furries jerk off to now? Won't anyone think of the furries? But yeah, I mean, it is kind of understandable when you think about it. Anyway, Coco sends you off for a new battery for a laptop. Yeah, that tells you how long ago this was made. What laptops have detachable batteries these days? What, have you not got a fucking Surface Pro or something? Just charge that shit. But then we get abducted by Cortex, who's apparently good now, because he wants us to find the well-hidden crystals for him, so he can save the world or some shit. And by well hidden, I of course mean just sitting out in plain fucking sight for any fucker to come upon. What, was Bianca from Spyro 3 in charge of hiding them?
Those eggs belong to us now, and I've hidden them in places you'll never find in 1,000 years.
A few moments later.
And with that out of the way, it's time to embark on our next adventure. So the basic gameplay is pretty much identical to the first game. You're just going through these levels, smashing crates and taking out bad guys in your quest to find the well-hidden crystals. Not that you actually have to. Yeah, you can actually leave the level without collecting the crystal at all, although I don't really see how that's possible considering they're literally just floating there in the middle of the path. But if you do, then Cortex will get all mad at you. So yeah, that's kind of funny. And in addition to the crystals, you've got all the other collectibles. You've got the Wumpa Fruit, the extra lives, and your trusty companion, the Witch Doctor mask, a key or whatever, who functions exactly the same as in the previous game. You've got pretty much all the same abilities as before, but with a couple new additions. You've now got a slide move that you can use to quickly avoid hazards and smash crates and take out enemies. And if you press the jump button at the end of a slide, you can jump a bit higher to get to, well, higher up places. And you can also do a body slam to smash stronger crates. And there's areas where you can tunnel under the ground or hang from meshes. So it's cool to see that we've got a more expanded moveset this time around, especially considering how limited it was in the previous game, although it does still feel slightly lacking. It just seems like we still don't have quite as many abilities as in some of the other games I've looked at, and we still don't unlock any new moves as we progress. But hey ho, this is still just the second game in the trilogy, gotta keep some things back for the sequel I suppose. The game's structured similarly to the first one. Again, it's split into several stages. This time it's the warp rooms, which act as central hub areas that you use to access individual levels from. Each warp room has 5 levels which you can tackle in any order, and once you beat all of them, you move on to the next one. And ho ho ho, what do we have here? An actually sensible, not fucked up save system. Now there's a real innovation right there. So yeah, now you can save the game at any time you want between levels. Well, that's real nice, ain't it? Look, you can even enter your name. Let's see, is there enough space for DayVeeJay? Well, we've got 8 letters, so I guess it's a step up from Future Cop. So yeah, I guess I'm DayVeeJay now. I don't know, maybe Crash 3 will finally give us 9 letters. That's when we'll know we've reached the pinnacle of game design. So yeah, now you can save between levels, which I recommend you do regularly, maybe even after every level. Why? Well, since this is still before autosave was a ubiquitous feature, if the game, you know, happens to be getting on your wick a bit and you end up rage quitting, believe me, it happened. You may be so frustrated that you might just forget to save beforehand, so then you'll come back, I don't know, maybe a day later when you've calmed down, ready to subject your mental health to another vicious flogging, but then the game's like, oh no, you forgot to save last time, you daft fucker. Looks like you're gonna have to do all the shit you did yesterday all over again. And then the console goes out the fucking window. So yeah, just make sure to save often. You'll thank me in the long run. But anyway, after you do a couple levels, you'll be contacted by Coco, who's like, oh, where's my fucking battery, you wanker? And she also warns you not to trust Cortex. What, really? You mean this guy? How weird, man, how can you not trust a face like that? And then later on, you're contacted by Embryo, Cortex's right-hand man from the first game, who apparently has also turned over a new leaf and is now working against his former master. So we've got a deeper story going on this time with lots of intrigue and factions working against each other. Ooh, it's just like Game of Thrones. Season 8 Game of Thrones. But anyway, rather than collect the crystals, Frankenstein here asks you to collect the gems instead. Oh, don't you talk to me about fucking gems. And how do we get the gems? Well, we'll get to that in a bit. But you better get used to these messages or whatever after levels, cause you'll be seeing them enough fucking times. Yeah, after virtually every other level it seems, it's like, oh, Dr. Cortex is calling, and you're just like, oh, for fuck's sake, what the fuck do you want now? The levels mostly follow the same format as the previous game. You've got the over-the-shoulder and side-scrolling levels, as well as the ones that are kind of a hybrid between the two. And the boulder and pig riding levels return as well, except now you're riding on a cute little polar bear. And oh god, he's still doing the weird eye thing before diving on the poor creature. Yeah, try doing that shit to a polar bear in real life, motherfucker, and see what happens to you. But anyway, they all play pretty much the same as in Crash 1, and there aren't many new types of level, which is kind of disappointing. But again, second game in the trilogy. But even though the levels are pretty much the same, they do have some new set pieces, I guess, within them. Like the bits where you're riding on the, I don't know, motorised surfboard thing. And I already mentioned the bits where you're climbing on grates and tunnelling under the ground to avoid enemies. And then you've got the levels where you've got a jetpack and you're going around in 0G. So we have got a bit more variation in the gameplay, which is good, and these bits are fun enough, but I don't think they make that huge a difference, to the point where it does seem like it's just the same game again, but with a few new things added in. So pretty much just like every video game sequel ever made. But compare it to Spyro 2, which, yeah, at its heart is the same game as Spyro 1, but it just had so much more going on with it than its predecessor. Not just with new abilities, but also with all the new challenges and mini-games that really helped to set it apart from the first one, which I'm just not really seeing here with Crash 2. But even though it is a bit samey, the game is at least fun enough to look past it. The bonus levels are back as well, but with some welcome changes. First, you don't have to find tokens to unlock them, instead you just find them part way through the level and can just enter them. But even better, you don't just get one chance this time. No, instead you can now try as many times as you want. You fuck it up, you just get kicked back to the main level and can try again, until you either finally do it or just get sick of trying. And getting killed in the bonus levels doesn't cost you any lives in the main game, so that's cool as well. And once again, when you finish all the levels in a warp room, you get a boss fight. These are pretty similar to those in the first game. They have about the same level of complexity. You're mostly just avoiding their attacks and then hitting them when you see an opening. For instance, oh great, we've got this crazy fucker, fucking Kangaroo Jack again, but thankfully he's a lot easier this time around. You've just got to stay away from the tiles that he turns into TNTs and Nitro and then hit him when he's dazed. So yeah, pretty simple, and once again the bosses don't have all that much to do with the story. I mean, they're meant to be working for Embryo to stop you from getting the crystals for Cortex, but it still doesn't make all that much difference. So again, they're just there, so you still don't feel that much investment in fighting them, except for the last couple which are a bit more involved, but we'll look at those in a bit. But I guess the biggest question is it as much of a malignant fucking cunt as its predecessor? And the answer is, yes and no. I mean, it's still a hard-ass piece of shit, just not quite as much as the first one. It does seem like they dialed back the difficulty a bit, but not too much. There were still plenty of moments where my fist nearly went through the fucking screen. You've got pretty much all the same shit as in the first game. The enemies that kill you in one hit just by touching unless you've got your mask friend to protect you. The pedantic ass fucking platforming that requires you to have near perfect skill and accuracy. The fixed camera angles that can make it difficult to judge distances properly. Yeah, it's playing all the same tricks as its arsehole older brother. But in spite of all that, I still didn't find it quite as difficult. One reason, I think, is the controls, which are pretty much the same as in Crash 1, but it does seem like they've been tightened up a bit. I didn't find myself having difficulty with making small and precise movements as much as before, or accidentally walking over edges and shit, and they don't feel quite as sensitive while still having a decent amount of weight and responsiveness. And one new thing they do to make the difficulty a bit more manageable is if you get killed at the same bit a few times, you'll automatically be given an Aku mask to help get you through it. And I don't know about you, but that's always pissed me off. Because now it just feels like the game's taking pity on you. Like it's saying, "Oh, you can't do this bit? Well here, let me help you out, because you can't do it yourself, because you're a pathetic little baby. Wah." And all I'm thinking is, no! I don't accept your pity. I don't need anyone to hold my hand. I'm not some weak little milksop. I'm a man. I'm a man, and I'm going to sit here and get through this shit with nothing but my own perseverance and mettle, thank you very much. They don't even help half the time anyway. Like when the bit that's fucking you up is a really annoying jump, but they still give you a mask, and it's like, yeah, fucking fat load of good that shit's gonna do, dickhead. Oh, and they'll also give you extra checkpoints. Like one of the crates, which is usually just a regular crate, becomes a checkpoint crate, which, yeah, that's cool. I don't mind that. But to be honest, I think the biggest reason why this one doesn't seem quite so hard is because they fixed up the catastrophically preposterous save system. I don't know, it's just that actually being able to save the game without having to get through the level without dying or beating the bonus levels, and then not getting kicked back multiple fucking levels every time you get game over, just makes the game much less of a ball ache to get through, while not making it too easy either. Which just proves what I was saying in the previous video, that the game wouldn't have been much less challenging if they just had a normal save system, but it would have been a whole hell of a lot less annoying as well, which they obviously knew because they changed it for this one, so yeah. I'm not really sure why I'm dwelling on it so much. I mean, I already talked about it plenty in the previous video, so now I'm just kind of repeating myself. So, yeah. Moving on. But I'm still not gonna let them forget it! But just cause it's a little easier doesn't mean the sick fucks haven't got some new tortures in store for us as well. First we've got the Nitro crates, the unstable younger brothers of the TNT crates, which for some reason I always remember being in the first game. Not sure why. Must be one of those Mandela effect things I keep hearing about. Ooh. But anyway, yeah, you remember these. A single pixel of you gently caresses one of these bad boys and boom! So naturally, the fuckers use them all over the place like, I don't know, fucking asbestos or some shit. So yeah, there's yet another reason why moving fast is usually the fastest way to get yourself killed. And then we've got the ice bits in the snow levels. Fuck, I hate the ice. It's just like the ice bits that all these games tend to have at one point or another. You step on it, you slip around all over the place, and it's harder to control the character. But on the whole, it's not bad. But not here. Ho-ho, here, you take one step onto the ice and it goes from feeling like you're controlling a video game character to like you just stepped into an episode of fucking Ice Road Truckers. You just suddenly feel so much heavier, as if Crash just spontaneously gained like 300 pounds or something. So pretty much every movement feels like you're wrestling with the game for control, and it just doesn't feel pleasant. And of course, it's then sending you slipping into the paths of enemies or over edges and shit, and it makes you move way faster when you're going forward, so then that's throwing off your timing when you've got shit in your way that you need to avoid. Yeah, some of the most annoying bits in the whole fucking game were down to this bullshit. But that's not all, because then we've got the bees. No, not the bees! Not the bees! Yes, the bees. They turn up a few times in the levels where you can tunnel under the ground to avoid them, but even then that's not enough to remedy how annoying these little fuckers can be. Say you can get away from them by going underground and you can spin them away, but they move so fast and they're really small, so it can be hard to take them out before they get you, especially when you've got other hazards you're trying to avoid at the same time. And sometimes the hives will even send out multiple bees at once, and if you spin them too early you can get rid of most of them except for the last one who then gets you, for fuck's sake. And of course I've got to mention this shit, the levels where you're going around in the fucking dark. Yeah, they had these in the first game as well, but I cut that part from the review. What were we saying about keeping stuff back for the sequel? But anyway, basically, it's exactly what it says on the tin. It's just a regular level what you go through in the dark. except for when you find this fairy-like thing that reminds me of fucking Navi from Legend of Zelda. Yeah, that's the only way this shit could be any more annoying, if you had that irritating little fuck following you around for the whole thing going, hey, listen, But yeah, the light doesn't last forever, and when it goes out, you've got to find another one. But if you're not quick enough, you can end up going around in the pitch dark, and it's pretty much like you're playing the game with your fucking eyes closed, cause that sounds like fun, doesn't it? And of course, the bastards aren't done with straight up trolling you either, but they're not gonna get me. I know their tricks. Fool me once, shame on you. Fool me twice, shame on fuck! The graphics and art style are pretty much the same as the first game, which is understandable given this is only a year later, but there have been some subtle improvements. The environments and lighting and weather effects do seem a little more detailed, as do the character models. They're not quite as blocky as before, and the animations seem a bit smoother as well. The soundtrack is the best of the series in my opinion, and has some of the most memorable tracks of the PS1 era. No lie, I've had the Warp Room theme stuck in my head for over 2 decades now, and I'm okay with that. The music just seems more lively and has a bit more character to it than the first game, which just makes it all the more memorable. My favourite tracks this time around, apart from the Warp Room, are the factory and jetpack levels. And since the story's been expanded quite a bit, that means there's a great deal more voice acting than the previous game. Well, more than a single cutscene's worth at least, and yeah, it's all decent enough. But of course the standout performance is from Clancy Brown as Dr. Neo Cortex, DDS, who goes all out and gives us one of the most memorable villains from the PS1 era. Cause I mean, yeah, he's Clancy Brown, the guy who plays Mr. Krabs, which I'm ashamed to admit I didn't actually know until I looked that up. Fun fact, did you know he also played Captain Hadley, the nasty prison guard in the Shawshank Redemption? Wow, really makes you see old Mr. Krabs in a whole new light, huh? Yeah, if I were you, I'd probably think twice about asking for that raise, SpongeBob. Anyway, about 3/4 of the way through the game or so, you end up fighting Cortex's new apprentice, Engine. And this is one of the more involved boss fights I was talking about earlier. It's nothing complex, but it does have a bit more going on than in the previous encounters. You've basically just got old Dr. Rockethead, I don't know, I couldn't think of a funny name or reference for him, and his flying half Gundam thing, and you have to use all the Wumpa fruit you've collected to blow all the guns and armaments off it to beat them. So I guess they've got dynamite in them as well, just like the fruit in Tarzan, which again I guess is understandable because Australia. But yeah, while it is simple, it's still a bit tricky because you've got to avoid all the shit he's firing at you, and you can only hit him when his weapons are opened up, like when he's shooting at you. So you're having to focus on multiple things at once to hit him while not getting hit yourself. Although, as with most of these fights, all you really have to do is just memorize his attack patterns and you'll be alright. And after you beat him and get the last 5 crystals, Cortex's plan is revealed. Turns out he's going to use the crystals to power his machine thing to enslave all of humanity or some shit. Wait, so you're telling me he's not trying to save the world? Huh, you really fooled me. But yeah, we can't be having that shit, so now we've got to fight the daft fucker. Again, this fight's got a bit more to it than most of the other ones, but it's not difficult. You've just got to chase after him with your jetpack, avoiding all the shit in your way, and then spin him when you get near, and that's it. He doesn't shoot back or anything, you've just got to make sure to beat him before he gets to the blue Stargate thing at the end, because if he does, he goes into hyperspace or whatever and gets away, I guess. Okay, is something gonna happen? Oh, there it is. What the fuck? So anyway, you beat Cortex and there you go, you saved the day game. But once again, the ending you get just for making it through isn't the full ending, which to get, you've got to, you guessed it, get 100%. And to do that, you've got to, get the gems. Great. Just wonderful. And how do we get the gems this time? Well, if you remember earlier, Embryo asked us to get them instead of collecting the crystals so he can save the world. Because yeah, he seems way more trustworthy. But there's a bit more to getting the gems this time around, with many levels having more than one that you get for doing different things. First you've got the gems for smashing every crate in the level, although thankfully you don't have to do it without dying this time, so there's an improvement. But the crates in the bonus sections also count now, so keep that in mind. Then there's a few that require you to beat certain challenges, Like in some of the river levels, you'll get a timer that you've got to beat to the end of the level, and then there's the death routes, harder alternate paths through some levels that you only unlock by getting to the platform without dying beforehand, because I guess they just couldn't bear to let the whole no dying thing go completely, and when you get to the end of those, you get another clear gem. And then you've got the coloured gems, some of which can be a real piss take to find, like the blue gem in the first level. How'd you get that, you ask? Or would you ever consider the idea that you might have to get through the level without smashing any of the crates? You know, one of the most fundamental aspects of gameplay that we've been conditioned to do over 2 whole games, and now we're just expected to be like, hey, that thing we've been encouraged to do throughout 2 games. Maybe I should try not doing that. Seriously, how's anybody supposed to figure that out? Well, I guess some fucker did. Like the one who made the guide that I followed, so yeah. Well done to those guys, I guess. But when you get the coloured gems, they'll unlock some extra paths within some levels, kind of like in Crash 1. But whereas those were just some small areas with a couple extra crates, these are actually full routes with their own individual challenges, which also happen to be some of the most irritating parts of the whole fucking game. And another really annoying thing is these extra routes sometimes also contain crates that you need to smash to get the clear gem, but then they bring you out further into the main level, meaning you then have to backtrack to get all the other crates you missed. But because you're going back through the wrong way, it's hard to see and avoid the hazards and enemies and shit, so you'll often not know what's there until you've walked right into it and it's killed you, for fuck's sake. And then you've also got some secret levels, the entrances to which can also be a piss take to find, but when you do, they'll bring you out to a secret warp room from which you can access them, as well as some areas of the main levels that were previously inaccessible, meaning some levels you won't be able to complete fully until later on. So yeah, while I didn't bother with any of that shit in Crash 1 and just used a password to get to 100%, since I value the last lingering threads of my sanity and would very much like to keep them, this time I actually gave it a go and got pretty far, albeit with the help of the aforementioned walkthroughs, but there were still some bits that were just too much for me, and since there are no fucking passwords this time around for some fucking reason, yeah, I didn't make it to 100%. But if you're one of the mad bastards who did, you got the full ending, in which Engine uses the gems to power his super death ray or whatever to blow Cortex's space station into space dust, and yeah, that's that. So that was Crash Bandicoot 2, Cortex Strikes Back, and in conclusion, yeah, it was about as painful as I remember. So on the whole, Crash 2 is very similar to its predecessor, almost to a fault. It plays mostly the same, feels mostly the same, looks and sounds mostly the same, but it does have a few welcome changes and improvements that make it a more fun and less frustrating experience. Although I do think that a lot more could have been done to expand on the base established by Crash 1, similar to how Spyro 2 improved upon its predecessor, but it's not a huge issue. It's still challenging and infuriating, and even though it doesn't do anything new or innovative, much like its predecessor, it's still fun enough to look past that. So yeah, overall, Crash 2 is a decent, if kind of limited, successor to Crash 1, and holds up pretty well, and if you've yet to experience it, I recommend you do so. And yeah, that'll do. Ugh, 2 down, just 1 left to go. And let me tell you, this one wasn't as bad as the first one, but it was no fucking picnic either, you can be sure of that. But with only 1 left, I might just get through this with my mind intact. Well, somewhat at least. But anyway, thank you very much for watching the video, I hope you enjoyed. If you did, then leave a like. If you didn't, then tell me to go fuck myself. We're trying to reach 1,000 subscribers by the end of the year, so if you enjoy my content, don't forget to subscribe to DayVeeJay for more classic PS1 reviews and retrospectives. And as always, thank you so much to everyone who already has. Thanks again for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.